Welcome back. Welcome to this video where we will be talking about a number of puzzles related to exception handling. We learned a little bit about exception handling in the previous videos and we will test it in this specific video. Now, let's start with a very basic example. So this is the code you are seeing right now. So try 10 by 0, except type error, except 0 division error, print end. What will be the output for this? Think about it. Let's run it. Cool. The output is 0 division error and end, because this would throw a 0 division error. This is where it gets handled. So 0 division error gets print and end is printed, and you can see that the exit code is successful exit, right? So it's properly exiting the program. Now let's look at the next one. Comment and comment. Now I would want to do 10 by 0. Here I'm saying object. You know that object is the superclass of all the classes, right? So can I put object in here and say 0 division error? What do you think will happen? Let's try it. You see that it throws an error. Catching classes that do not inherit from base exception is not really allowed. So what the exception says, catching classes that do not inherit from base exception is not allowed. So even though object is a valid class, you cannot catch with it. You can only catch those classes which inherit from base exception. I've imported the built-ins and I'm doing a help built-ins as we did earlier, and you can see the hierarchy, right? So base exception inherits from object. So only those classes which inherit from base exception you would be able to handle, and one of them is exception. So you can either handle base exception or any of the things which is under exceptions. Now let's comment this and let's uncomment the next puzzle. So over here we are handling base exception. So this is throwing divide by 0 error and handling base exception. What do you think will happen? It says base exception and end. What happens is this is throwing a divide by 0 error, right? So this is throwing a 0 division error, and you'd see that 0 division error is under arithmetic error, which is under exception, which is under base exception. So you can either catch this or this or this or this. If you catch any of those four, you would see that the exception gets caught. One of the things you are already noticing in here is the IDE says too broad exception clause. Generally, you should not handle too broad a clause. You should have specific exception handling clauses for the exceptions that you would expect. Now let's pick up arithmetic error from here. You can see that 0 division error comes from arithmetic exception. So if I do arithmetic exception in here, what do you think will happen? The exception would still be caught. However, if I do an overflow error, right? So overflow error is different from a 0 division error, and it's not part of its hierarchy. So 0 division error does not inherit from overflow error. So what would happen if I do overflow error? You'd see that the exit code is 1. We are not handling the error because 0 division error is thrown. This does not match, so it throws the exception outside. So the exception is not really handled. So you should be very careful and you should understand the exception hierarchy before you try and handle exceptions. Now let's look at the next puzzle. Try 10 by 0. And over here I'm using a new syntax. The thing is, you can also handle multiple errors in the same block. So the way you can do that is you can put a parenthesis and put the errors you would want to handle in here. Here I would want to handle 0 division error and type error. So if either of these exceptions happen, you'd see that this block would be able to handle it. So if I run this right now, it would print exception and end. The same thing would be the output if I have a type error being thrown. So if sum of 1 comma 1, what does it throw? I'm trying to add a number with a string. So what would happen? It would throw a type error, right? So let's see what would happen. You can see that the same code gets executed. So this exception block will be able to handle now two kinds of errors: 0 division error and type error. The last puzzle shows how you can get the exception details. So over here what we are doing is except type error and adding in as error. Sometimes you would want to get the details of the error and print them out. So the way you can get that is you can say as error and you can print the details out. Let's see what would be the output in this case. You can see that the output is unsupported operator for plus, int and string. Typically when we are debugging, it's important to see more details, right? If somebody said print exception and you have this, you don't know what exception has really happened. So having specific details will help much more. So here we are saying print error and it says unsupported operator type for plus, int and string. Then probably you can look at this and figure out, okay, this is what the problem is. Instead of saying something generic, it's always good to say something specific, and having the error variable in here helps us to add more value to the message we are printing to the output. There you go. These are some of the important puzzles related to exception handling. There are two new things that we have learned in this specific step. One is you can handle multiple exceptions. All that you need to do is put them within parentheses and you can have multiple exceptions handled. The second thing we learned was you can get the error details, you can get the exception details. All that you need to do is accept the type of the error as your variable name and you can get the details of the exception which is thrown. I hope you're having a lot of fun with exception handling and I'll see you in the next step. Until then, bye bye.